I knew something was off the moment she picked up the mic with that smug influencer grin. Lip gloss perfectly smeared, like it just kissed a glass of entitlement. It was the end of quarter all hands, full room, lights too bright, fake cheer in the air. We were less than a week from closing the $9.4 million expansion deal I'd been quietly nurturing for 11 damn months. I'd worked through holidays, pulled the system out of collapse twice, and turned a B-grade logistics startup into something worth betting on. My team knew it. Finance knew it. Legal definitely knew it. But apparently, nepotism doesn't need receipts. It just needs a ring light and Daddy's approval. She stood up there, all 24 years of unchecked ego, dressed in a pastel blazer. She probably couldn't spell operations in. "We're so excited to start this next chapter," she cooed, as if she hadn't been in the building for 6 weeks total. Then she called me up to the front. I thought maybe, they were finally doing something right. Maybe someone had grown a conscience. Instead, she tossed me a hoodie. I didn't even catch it, just let it slap the ground like the joke it was. "For morale," she chirped. "Thought you'd appreciate the vibes?" The room went dead quiet. Even Chad from finance stopped pretending to type. I stood there for a beat, staring at the navy blue lump at my feet. $95,000. That was the bonus I was owed, contractually. Tied to performance metrics I not only met, I shattered. And she was replacing it with polyester and a logo designed by the CEO's other daughter who failed out of design school. I bent down, picked up the hoodie, folded it neatly, and set it on the edge of the podium like it was contaminated. She smirked, probably thinking she'd won. "We're pivoting," she added with a little shrug. "And honestly, your vibe's just not part of it." You ever feel the kind of calm that only comes right after a freefall? That slow exhale before the impact? That was me. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't even blink. Just turned, walked to the door, and let it shut behind me like a guillotine on 3 years of my life. They didn't even hear the click, but the system did. And hey, if you're still listening and haven't hit like or subscribe, this is your sign to do it. 97% of folks don't, and it really helps the team keep sharing these stories. Thanks, truly. Now, back to the silence that followed me out that door. Because what that little hoodie stunt really triggered wasn't just my exit, it was the collapse. By the time I reached the parking lot, I wasn't shaking, not angry, not sad, just quiet. The kind of quiet that lives beneath a frozen lake. Her voice still echoed in my skull, pitch perfect with that breathy condescension only trust fund babies and failed YouTubers seem to master. "Your vibe's not part of it. Cute. Real cute." I sat in my car, didn't start it, just tethered my phone to the car's Wi-Fi and opened the admin panel. One last login. No alarms, no warning messages. I still had back-end access. Of course I did. She fired me at an all-hands like a reality show elimination, but didn't tell IT to cut credentials. I was still the listed architect on 5 of the 7 core vendor integrations, which meant I still had keys. I opened the third-party logistics dashboard and scrolled to the renewal schedule. There it was, blinking like a soft little pulse. Auto-renewal, enabled. Linked to Phase 2 of the expansion project. I'd connected this system myself back when the CTO rage quit over compensation and left mid-integration. Nobody else wanted to touch it. It was a Frankenstein stack of legacy code and custom APIs, duct-taped together with caffeine and sarcasm. But I made it sing. I made it seamless. I made it scalable. And now, I toggled off auto-renew. Nothing broke. No fireworks. No dramatic crash. That's the beauty of precision. It doesn't announce itself. It just waits. In 12 business days, the license will expire. Fulfillment lines will start rejecting orders. Inventory sinks will jam. And that flashy Q4 launch she keeps bragging about in her LinkedIn reels? It'll stall like a Tesla with a dead cell. But no one will see it coming. Not today. Not tomorrow. Only after it's too late. Because here's the part she forgot. Hell, maybe never even knew. That logistics module, tied to a licensing agreement. That licensing agreement, built on a rider I drafted myself. Clause 12. Any structural renewal or expansion requires co-signer validation from the original architect. Me. I buried that clause deep in the doc review. Legal skimmed it. Her dad initialed it. She never touched it. So when the investors check in next week about status greenlights for the $9.4 million venture phase, they'll find a blinking red square and a missing authorization signature. Guess whose? I closed the dashboard, wiped my fingerprints from the digital glass. Then I started driving. Not home. Somewhere with strong coffee and no Bluetooth speakers playing girl boss anthem playlists. She thought she was cutting dead weight. She didn't realize she just snipped the oxygen line feeding their entire pipeline. 3 days after my exit, the Slack leaks started trickling in, screenshots forwarded by ex-colleagues who still had spines. The CEO was reassuring the board that his daughter was just optimizing team culture. That's what he called it. Culture. Like productivity could be feng shuied into existence by rearranging job titles and replacing engineers with brand interns who'd never touched a workflow diagram in their lives. Apparently, she'd started filming day in the life TikToks, office shots, oat milk lattes, voiceovers about redefining operational harmony while twirling a dry erase marker like a baton. Meanwhile, 2 senior project managers stopped coming to stand-ups. One deleted every document from her Google Drive and just left a note that read, "Try filming this." Legal flagged it, but nobody did a damn thing. The expansion timeline was still posted publicly. Q4 deliverables, new warehouse projections, doubled fulfillment capacity. $9.4 million in VC funds contingent on everything going according to schedule. And every clock in that building was now ticking toward a cliff they couldn't see. I didn't gloat. Not yet. Instead, I met Michael, investor, ex-founder. One of the few people in that circle who understood what actually kept the company alive before the glow-up rebrand and authentic vibes era. We met at a quiet corner cafe. He always hated flashy restaurants. Said if a pitch couldn't survive over burnt coffee and a plastic fork, it didn't deserve funding. He didn't ask why I left. He already knew. Just waited while I stirred a creamer packet I didn't need. Finally, I said, "They kept the hoodie." He raised an eyebrow and cut the architect. That got a grin out of him. Not smug, just knowing. He reached into his satchel, same leather thing he's probably had since the dot-com boom, and slid me a manila folder. I opened it. My original systems map. The one I gave him in a pitch deck 2 years ago when I first convinced him this dumpster fire of a startup could be saved. "I never threw it out," he said. "You were the only one who showed me an actual structure. Everyone else was selling buzzwords." I scanned the pages, my notes, my annotations, even the color-coded dependency trees for vendor licensing. Clause 12 was highlighted in yellow. He leaned back. You know what's coming? I nodded. Fulfillment crashes in 9 business days. No backups, no authorization. He tapped the folder. You ready? I'm not going back, I said flatly. Didn't ask you to, he said. I just need your silence to last a little longer. He paid the bill in cash and walked out like he'd just finalized a merger. No goodbye, no handshake. Just a storm cloud dressed in a windbreaker. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just going to collapse. It was going to realign, quietly, cleanly, and permanently. The countdown started ticking the moment she fired me, but day 1 didn't make a sound. Day 2 brought a few side eyes in the war room. By day 4, her new ops team, 3 junior analysts with ring lights and matching pastel MacBooks, were scrambling to assemble mock-ups for the expansion trial they didn't understand. They were calling it Logistics Light. I'd call it a car with no engine. Their Slack channel overflowed with questions I used to get in one-on-one meetings. What's the fulfillment batch interval again? Which vendor handles cold storage routing? Do we have a threshold trigger for SKU dropouts? Nobody had answers. Because I had them. Because I built the damn map, and they deleted it like it was just another file in Google Drive. Somewhere around day 5, the vendor portal began sending out automated reminders. Renewal pending authorization, 7 business days remaining. It pinged the shared expansion inbox, triggered alerts in the ops calendar, and even dropped a friendly push to her smartwatch, though I doubt she read it between filming Monday grind, but make it cute clips in the break room. Just another IT thing, she told one of the designers when asked. Probably needs a ticket or something. That IT thing was the licensing gateway for our entire fulfillment model. Every pallet, every shipment, every load balancing routine between the warehouse and the end client, it all ran through that one contract. And the minute that authorization window closed without my signature, it would revert to manual processing delays. In logistics, that's a death sentence. In Q4, it's suicide. Meanwhile, I was 83 miles away in a glass conference room, sipping water with lemon, while 3 attorneys representing the expansion partner reviewed documents I'd sent the night before. They didn't bother with pleasantries. These people had teeth. They just opened with the question. Is your name still on the Clause 12 logistics rider? I nodded. Until they pay me what they owe. One of them raised an eyebrow. We thought the clause expired with the role. I slid over a copy of the contract I had quietly annotated the night she tossed me the hoodie. It expires on termination with severance or bonus fulfillment. They gave me a sweatshirt. Silence. Another lawyer leaned back, processing. So they terminated the architect and invalidated the clause, without satisfying payment conditions, which means, I cut in, the clause is still active, and without it, your partner agreement defaults to non-validated structure. That kills the launch window. They sat with it. No dramatics, just a shared moment of corporate horror disguised as contemplation. After a pause, the lead counsel asked, Are you interested in resolving this amicably? I smiled. Not warm, not cruel, just enough to let them know I wasn't here to negotiate. I already have. You just don't know it yet. They didn't ask me to explain. They knew what was coming. Day 10 started with a chirpy team email from her, subject line in all lowercase. Big energy for the new week. The body read like it had been dictated to ChatGPT at 1 a.m. after a spin class. Buzzwords stitched together like a patchwork quilt of delusion. Synergy. Lean into discomfort. Unlearn hierarchy. We're building a community, not just a company. No mention of the missing authorizations. No update on the expansion deal. Just a selfie of her holding a green smoothie and pointing to a whiteboard that read Q4 Dominance in dry erase marker, the smiley face below it drawn like it had suffered a small stroke. Around 11:07 a.m., the expansion partner emailed. Just one line. Why haven't we received confirmation of Clause 12 approval? Her response, forwarded to half the office by someone with a soul, was quick and breezy. It's handled. We're streamlining the back end. You'll have docs soon. Exclamation point and all. She didn't copy legal. She didn't loop in finance. She didn't even glance at the contract binder collecting dust on the shelf behind her ring light. She just shrugged. Like this was a group project and someone else would figure it out. Legal did notice. About 2 hours later, an internal memo from the associate counsel hit her inbox. We've identified a potential compliance breach. Per the expansion agreement, the logistics framework hinges on the original architect's renewal sign-off. Without it, our current structure may be deemed non-binding. Her reply? No big. We'll just roll a new agreement. No punctuation, no capitalization. Just the confident flippancy of someone who thinks paperwork is optional when you say it in a pretty tone. What she didn't know, what no one in her TikTok startup fantasy ever told her, is that the partner agreement had a built-in transfer clause, not a termination clause, a transfer clause. If the original architect of the logistics model is terminated without signed compensation and their contractual validation is left incomplete, ownership of all physical expansion infrastructure reverts to the controlling investor with highest equity interest. The same investor I had coffee with. The same man holding a fully executed copy of the system's architecture with my original signature. So no, sweetheart, you can't just roll a new agreement. You'd have to roll back time. Unfire me. Unfold the hoodie. Unsmirk. But that wasn't on her radar. She was too busy filming a Monday mindset reel with the quote, "Lead with light, not legacy." By sunset, the portal alert read, 2 business days until service halt. Collapse doesn't always begin with a crash. Sometimes it starts with a smirk and a checkbox left blank. By day 12, the silence had teeth. Fulfillment dashboards started blinking red in the early hours. Sync failures, API timeouts, SKUs falling out of queue like dead birds from a wire. At first, the ops interns just refreshed Chrome and blamed Wi-Fi. But when warehouse routing logs stopped populating entirely, someone finally flagged it to the CTO. Poor bastard. New hire. 3 weeks in, thought he was building next-gen supply chains. Spent more time drawing vision graphs in Notion than learning how the actual fulfillment nodes worked. He called me at 7:43 a.m., 9:12 a.m., and again at 10:07. Never left a voicemail. Just that corporate ringtone on loop like a sad ringtone remix of regret. I didn't answer. I wasn't interested in patching holes I'd warned them not to poke through. Meanwhile, I was in a conference room on the 32nd floor of a building, with its name etched into glass so thick it blocked out street noise, and apparently common sense. Across from me sat 3 attorneys, a paralegal, and Michael, investor, architect, predator in Patagonia fleece. They didn't say much. No one needed to. Everything was printed already. Document stacks sorted by date, contract clause, and probable cause for unilateral control acquisition. Michael's folder had one sticky note on the front. It just said, "Signed." Because that's what she did. That all-hands spectacle wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a legal gift. Her signature on my termination, issued publicly without severance, didn't just activate Clause 12's failsafe. It enacted the silent clause baked into the original convertible funding agreement. A clause Michael had written himself back when the company needed a lifeline and he needed an angle. If the core architect is removed without payout and their validated structure is left unauthorized past renewal, the investor, with dominant equity interest, absorbs operational control of all future expansions by default. He never needed to sue. He never needed a fight. He just needed her to be herself, arrogant, reactive, and convinced that formality was optional if you said it with enough curated lighting. Back at the office, support queues tripled in 4 hours. Clients were getting half-filled orders. SKUs were being mismatched and misrouted. Marketing went into freefall. After all, they'd spent the last 2 weeks promising double-capacity rollouts and frictionless Q4 delivery. There were even Instagram stories touting smoothest ops pivot of the year. But in the war room, the silence was drowning. No dashboards, no confirmation codes, no one answering the expansion partner's escalation emails. And definitely no one brave enough to tell the CEO's daughter that her vision board just triggered a control transfer she couldn't spell, let alone reverse. The trap didn't need bait, just arrogance, and she served it on a damn platter. The boardroom was already humid with nerves before she walked in, overcompensating in a double-breasted blazer, like she thought shoulder pads could deflect consequences. Her dad trailed behind, looking like a man who'd just realized his family yacht didn't come with a life raft. Legal was already seated, eyes glassy, hands twitching over untouched coffees. No one touched the pastry tray. Michael arrived exactly 2 minutes early, not rushed, not smug, just composed in a way that didn't feel earned, it felt inherited. Like he'd been waiting for this room to collapse on itself for months and had finally arrived with the insurance paperwork. He placed his folders on the table with surgical precision and sat down across from her like a professor, ready to explain why the science fair volcano just burned the school down. "I won't take up too much of your time," he said evenly, sliding the first document across the polished walnut. "This is the original termination letter you signed, publicly, at the all-hands." She barely glanced at it. "We've already addressed this," she said, that fake smile lilt curling the end of her words. The org chart needed fresh alignment, no ill intent. Michael didn't blink. "This document is what nullified your licensing bridge. Without the architect's signature, the Clause 12 framework invalidated itself at close of business yesterday." She scoffed, leaned back, crossed her arms. "Okay, and we can rebuild the stack, hire contractors. It's not like one document." He interrupted by flipping open the second folder. A printed clause, highlighted, annotated, and tabbed with the kind of legal sharpness you only see in class action lawsuits or divorce court. "And this," he said, tapping the clause with one finger, "is what transferred controlling interest in all expansion infrastructure to me." Silence. You could feel the air change, like someone cracked a window in winter. Legal's youngest associate dropped her pen. The CTO inhaled too sharply and started coughing into his elbow. Even her father, the CEO, the man who once gave an entire keynote on trusting your gut, went pale beneath his spray tan. She blinked. Once. Twice. That's not enforceable. I mean, there's no way that was in the original. It was, Michael said. Page 74, subsection C. Triggered by termination of original architect without fulfilled compensation. You signed the activation with the hoodie. Her mouth opened, closed. Somewhere behind her, the head of product muttered, "Oh my God." Michael leaned back, folding his hands neatly. You removed the architect. You didn't fulfill the contract. And now I control the next phase of your company. It wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It was quiet the way a guillotine is quiet once it's done falling. She reached for the folder again, but her hands were shaking. Michael didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The damage was already surgical. All from one sweatshirt, one unchecked clause, and one woman too full of herself to read the fine print on the trapdoor she pulled. They called the emergency vote the same afternoon. No catered lunch, no curated playlist. Just 5 board members, 3 legal reps, and a projector, humming like it knew the end of an era was being PowerPointed to death. The CEO didn't fight. He looked tired, not just aged, but hollowed out tired, like someone who'd built a company, handed it to his daughter, and watched her redecorate the engine room until it sank. They asked him to step down. He agreed before they could finish the sentence. No speech, no exit interview, just signed the form and slid it forward, like he was clocking out for the last time. She wasn't given the same courtesy. The vote to remove her wasn't unanimous, but it was close enough. They called it a transition, the way corporations do when they need to say exile without spooking investors. HR phrased it as pursuing new growth opportunities. Rumor was, her final words were, you can't fire innovation. The irony being, innovation never needed a ring light and a smoothie to justify its presence. The following morning, Michael's office called me, not to gloat, not to negotiate, just to offer a seat. Transition committee, interim guidance, advisory oversight. Pick a title, they said. I'd earned it. I showed up in jeans and a flannel, no pretense. Sat across from Michael in the same conference room where we'd first mapped the architecture on a napkin and a shot clock. He gestured to the seat across from him. You built it. You should help run what comes next. I shook my head. I don't want the seat. He looked surprised, but only for a second. Then what did you want? I leaned back, hands in my lap, quiet. Then, I just wanted the silence to mean something. He nodded slowly. The kind of nod you give a person you finally understand. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out a thin envelope, and slid it across the table. We're naming the new warehouse after you, he said. Architect Series. First line ships next month. I didn't open the envelope. I didn't need to. He signed the controlling rights transfer on the spot. My name came off the clause. Not as an erasure, just a final dot at the end of a sentence written in hard work and quiet exits. I walked out of that building the same way I had before, without ceremony. This time, no one stopped me. And for the first time, I didn't feel like something had been taken from me. I felt like I'd finally handed back the noise. The new warehouse hummed like a living thing, polished floors, humming conveyors, and a rhythm in the air that came from systems running exactly the way they were meant to. Not rushed, not bloated with ego, just efficient, clean, balanced. A shipment label slid off the printer, crisp and deliberate. Rebuild Series, Architect Verified. It was the first outbound box from the new fulfillment center. Interns clapped. A few execs high-fived like they'd just discovered gravity. Somewhere overhead, a drone snapped photos for the investor update deck. The investor himself, Michael, stood near the dock, hands in his coat pockets, quietly watching it all move forward. An intern, barely out of college, wide-eyed and earnest, leaned in and asked him, "Hey, why do we call it that? The Rebuild Series?" Michael smiled, not broadly, just the kind of subtle grin you get when you remember something no one else in the room was around to see. "Ask the last VP of Ops," he said. The intern blinked. Wasn't that? But Michael was already walking away. Across town, in a house far removed from glass towers and fluorescent pitch rooms, I was folding a hoodie. Same one she'd tossed at me like a prize. Tag still on, still creased from the way I folded it on that podium. I never wore it, never burned it either. I just waited for the right time to put it away, boxed it, labeled it, filed under, debt settled. And as I placed it on the shelf, the silence in the room wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. They thought they took 95 carat from me, but all they really bought was an invoice.